Good morning. I'm Mary Croxton from the League of Women Voters, and we have asked the Board of Elections to come here and answer some questions that are commonly asked of the League when we register voters. We also have a student here, who, and I'll have everybody introduce themselves, who will give us a student perspective on questions to ask of the Board of Elections. The League of Women Voters is nonpartisan. We don't support any candidates and we don't support a party. But we do support education about voting, and that's one of our main jobs as a league. We are now a little over 100 years old. Before 1920, we formed as a league coming from groups of suffragist groups. So we're going to start out asking a few questions that we often get, and the Board of Elections will answer those. But would you introduce yourself and say?
Oh, of course. I'm Norman Green. I'm the Democratic Election Commissioner at the Chautauqua County Board of Elections.
And I'm Brian Abram. I'm the Republican Election Commissioner.
Hi, my name is Ariel Davis, and I'm a senior marketing major at SUNY Fredonia.
Our first question, how old must you be to register to vote? And Norm, will you take that question?
That's a trick question.
Well, you can vote, register to vote at age 16 here in New York State. We will hold your registration for 2 years, and then when your 18th birthday hits, we will send your voter ID card and welcome you to the club of Please Participate and Vote.
Great, great. Ariel, do you have a student perspective question?
I do. How do I get an absentee ballot?
There's many methods to get an absentee ballot. One, you can call the Board of Elections and say, send me a absentee ballot application. You can go online to votechautauqua.com and download one, fill it out, send it to us. You can call us on the phone and we will take your information over the phone and basically send you a ballot from that verbal conversation. You could fax one to us, or you can go to the New York State, who now has a portal for absentee voting, which is diagrammed for each county, and give them your information and they'll provide it back to the local county boards.
These are COVID-only ideas, or rules this year only, as far as just calling up the Board of Elections to get an absentee ballot application or sending us an email. This isn't the normal process. Normal process would be they'd have to fill out a formal absentee ballot application and sign it.
My second question is, if a person is 18 on election day but would like to vote early or by absentee ballot, can they still vote?
Every single person that pre-registers to vote that will be eligible to vote on election day will be in the electronic poll book where people sign in early voting and will be able to vote early. Early voting is an extension of election day, so everything that happens has to do with the general election day.
Okay.
When I am a college student and I'm out of town, where can I vote and how do I decide where to vote?
As a college student, you can vote basically back at your, if you're not from the area, you can go and ask the area where you're from, the county that you're from, for an absentee ballot application, and you can use the absentee system. If you would want to vote here, new here in New York State, you do not need to register here. It would be nice if you did, but if you don't, you can come to the poll site and vote affidavit on election day, your local poll site. For a college student, it would be Wheelock Elementary School. You would come there and we would have you vote affidavit, get all the information from you as far as what you're providing for us, as far as you being a county resident here in Chautauqua County. And then after the election, we would review your information and basically invite you and have you in as our voter.
So college students that are New York State residents have registered to vote either here or in their home county have the option, college students have the option to vote from their college address or to be voting from the address, the original home address.
How long do I have to live in my college address before I can vote in the election here? Does it matter how long?
You technically have to have 30 days of residency to be able to vote at your new college address. But you can, when you register to vote, if you were to register to vote on October 3rd and you just got to college, which wouldn't be the case, but if you just got to college, you're affirming that on election day you'll have lived here 30 days.
Thank you.
You mentioned electronic poll books. Those are something fairly new. Could you explain that to the public, what that's going to be like?
Those are very new. We started using them just for early voting last year. This year we're going to roll them out full as far as every poll site will have electronic poll books. It's very similar to the paper version, which is when you come in, you'll be greeted by two individuals, a Republican and a Democrat, behind a tablet, and they'll ask you your first three initials of your last name and the first three of your first name. Type it in, pull up your information, and you will be, asked a basic question: is this you? Do you still live there? They'll flip the tablet. The signature will be done electronically, flipped back, it matches, and the person will be provided a ballot. So it is similar, but it's more efficient, where it'll help our poll workers identify the voter and process them quicker.
Will there be a pen, or will they have to do it with their finger, or how does that work?
There will be a stylus, and what we'll do is not let each individual use the same stylus. We will have a little wicker basket out there, and we'll hand you a stylus. You'll sign your name, and then you'll put it into the what we'll call soiled ones, and then we'll keep providing the fresh new ones, and then clean these ones, sanitized ones, so we're not using the same stylus all day long. We've ordered a lot of extras to help the process, and as we talk about COVID and the new process, we're rolling out electronic poll books, and the process will have a little bit of difference just based on COVID, but as far as the electronic version, it will, again, be very similar to the style of how we found you in the other poll book.
I do have to add that this year only, because of COVID-19, when a voter walks into a poll site, they will be able to go to any table electronic poll book. They won't have to find their election district. We're trying to make this as easy as it possibly can be, so that people are going to move in and move out, because we have a limitation as to how many people we can have in the poll site building, and we won't be allowing anybody more than 50 voters to be inside the poll site building, because that's what the governor of the state of New York has ordered. And so we're going to move people in and out just as quickly as we possibly can. And we're very hopeful that people are not going to stop and have personal conversations during this time of a pandemic.
Are there any other procedures that you guys are taking to make sure that voting is safe this year?
Yes. We have shields. When you walk in and you see the two individuals behind the table, they will also have a shield between you and them and the voter. That's new this year, so you'll see that. You'll see the fact that there's going to be a wipe down of all touched areas. There will be somebody at the door, and there'll be a table at the door also that will provide masks, and it will provide sanitary hand solution for anybody that comes in the door. You're going to be required to wear a mask. We will have the hand sanitizer there for you. We will mark 6 feet on the floor. We will have the shields between our staff and the voter, and we will definitely be social distancing to the best of our ability at every one of our 49 locations.
Wow,
every week we're having a meeting about COVID-19 procedures and how to make sure that the voters will be safe when they go to vote, and how our poll workers will be safe when the voters come in. So we're following every possible procedure. We're talking our staff through every possible procedure. Everybody's going to know exactly what to do, and we're just looking for the cooperation of the voters, that they come with a mask, and even if you're an anti-masker, help us, cooperate, come with a mask, and so that we can service everybody, and everybody will be as safe as they possibly can be.
Okay. When registering to vote, do you need identification? And if so, this is when registering. Mm-hmm. And then I'll follow up with another one. What kind of identification would you need when registering to vote?
Well, the first thing you do is when you register to vote, we're going to ask for your driver's license number on the voter registration form, or the last 4 digits of your Social Security number. What happens from there is we're not actually seeing the identification. We're actually in a statewide voter registration database making a handshake with either the Social Security Administration or with the DMV. So that if you put down, here's my driver's license, but my date of birth doesn't match, you're going to be triggered, and we're going to automatically print in our electronic poll book that we're going to use the ID when you come to the polls. But if there's a match, all your information was correct. It's done by computers, supercomputers in Albany that communicate with Washington, D.C., and then also the supercomputer for the DMV is, I believe, in Binghamton, and they communicate with each other to verify that you're actually the person that you state you are. Then you're signing a statement, and a statement stating under penalty of law that you are eligible to vote, you meet all the requirements, and if we find that you haven't, which we do sometimes, that gets turned over to the district attorney's office for prosecution.
Okay, that follows up. Do you need identification when you go in to vote? And if no, what are the exceptions?
The answer is no. We don't ask for identification unless you haven't provided it, like Norm had mentioned. We require that you have a signature match. So whatever signature you put on the bottom of that form, registration form with that affirmation that this is who I am and all the information is valid, that is captured at the Board of Elections and it's put into the e-poll book. And then when your tablet is flipped towards you, you will match your signature to what we have on file and allow you to vote. The only time we would ask for ID is if there is some sort of issue that happens between the time you register and the time you come to vote, where there isn't some sort of clear path, like Norm was mentioning, to allow you to be identified as specifically that individual.
But every voter should come technically with identification because any voter could be challenged. And any citizen that's at the poll site could challenge a voter and they could say, no, she doesn't live here. I know she doesn't live here anymore. She's moved to Buffalo, and I challenge her. And in that challenge, our election inspectors will take your identification. If you have no identification, they will then make you or ask you to fill out an affidavit ballot affirming who you are and what you say you are, and you're eligible to vote there, again, under penalty of law.
So as a college student, when I first registered to vote, I was 18 and my signature is completely different now. So I should ensure that I bring my ID with me.
Well, you should always, like Norm mentioned, bring your ID. People's signature does change, but there are certain variables within your signature that won't. And we will see that usually in your first letter or your last letter. We will see a pretty good similarity of what you did when you were 18, which again, it does change over the course of the years, but in general, the signatures stay pretty consistent.
Okay. Do I have to be registered with a party to vote in the presidential election?
Absolutely not. All you have to do is be registered to vote. If you're not registered to vote, then your vote's not going to be counted. We do have a policy in Chautauqua County. Every single voter that walks in gets the opportunity to vote, but not every single voter gets to vote on the scanner, fill out a ballot and scan it. They get to vote provisionally, and that's we take an affidavit from that person, and that person says, oh yeah, I'm registered to vote, and maybe we're able to determine after the election, oh yes, maybe they transferred their registration from Lockport to Fredonia. And that's perfectly allowable because we have a statewide registration system. So if you decided, hey, I want to vote for my Fredonia College campus address or my Fredonia Village address, you're certainly allowed to do that, but you'll be voting by affidavit ballot.
Did that have something to do with a Portability Act that was enacted that happened? Or is this a recent thing that you're able to do that?
Yes, I think it was, a year ago that the laws changed where we used to be, I consider each county was like a little silo and never would, take customers or voters from other counties and allow them to participate in that county's election. Now it's all New York State all in, so if you come from Niagara County and you come to Chautauqua County and it's You come in, you tell us all the things that are necessary. Yes, we'll have to vote affidavit on that form. We'll evaluate it, but we won't exclude you because you're from Niagara County like in the past. We would include it in our totals because statewide we'd be able to find you, identify you, and then welcome you to here.
What is a write-in vote?
Well, a write-in vote is when we have an office up, you have the opportunity to fill in the oval for the candidates who have circulated a petition or have somehow qualified for the ballot. You get to circle in the oval, but at the very bottom of the ballot there's a place to write in. And you can write in for every single office except for President and Vice President of the United States, because the person that you write in for Vice President or President of the United States had to announce to the New York State Board of Elections that they're write-in candidates. So you could never win an election if you hadn't first notified for President in New York State, if you hadn't first notified the New York State Board of Elections that you were a write-in candidate.
I just learned something.
Yes. At the bottom of every race, you'll see the rectangle.
Oh, I've seen
it
the
says
write-in,
write-in. We get a lot of variety of write-ins, many of which we can't say here openly, but sometimes they're legit, and sometimes that's the way a candidate wants to run and win. It's always available, except for in the case that Norman mentioned. But yeah, that option is available. And it's underneath every race if you look at the matrix of the ballot itself.
I just didn't realize about the president. That was the only one you couldn't do that. What if a person is homeless? How would they register to vote?
Myself and Norma have had this conversation multiple times over the years. They can still register. They just have to pick some location that they consider home. And we would then obviously put them on our rolls and allow them to vote. You do not have to have you could have like a park bench or some sort of address of that nature to become an elected, person who can participate in the process.
So someone could be registered to vote under the park bench at Memorial Park right across the street from where we're filming. And then they would have an address that we would mail to, and that could be a general delivery at the United States Post Office in Dunkirk. And so in the general delivery, you have to show up there within 30 days if it comes in general delivery. They would pick it up and they would affirm that by picking it up and receiving mail from the Board of Elections that yes, I do get mail, and yes, I still do live under the park bench on Lakeshore Drive at Memorial Park.
If I got an absentee ballot, how far in advance would I have to mail it in for it to be counted?
Well, I'm going to say the earlier you can process your own absentee ballot is the best, but you have all the way up till 7 days prior to as far as asking for one, and then you could mail it in all the way up to Election Day. So if it's postmarked November 3rd, it works, it's countable, it's timely, it's part of the club that's going to be counted as soon as we have the opportunity to open up the absentees. So when you get it, obviously you have some time, but you have all the way up to Election Day to put it in the mail and have a post mark put on it to make sure that we see that, considers your thing timely, and we add it to the totals.
And we have to receive that ballot within 7 days after the election, except for a military and overseas voter, which get a little longer time period. So it has to be received. And it doesn't have to be postmarked. That's not the only way. You could also deliver it to the polls in your home county. If you're voting a Chautauqua County ballot, it would have to be delivered to a Chautauqua County poll site or to one of our early voting sites, which I presume we'll be talking about shortly.
Okay. When does a registration to vote have to be submitted before this election?
October 9th is the deadline. It's the last day to register to vote to be a person who could participate.
So that would be by postmark or coming personally to the Board of Elections, one of those two things. And the postmark, the Postal Service, we think, Brian and I have gotten a little bit of a bad rap in the fact that we're still seeing mail come through within 2 days of anybody who mails it in Dunkirk, Fredonia to Mayville. We just haven't seen this, mail getting lost. Do we see mail having a problem coming from Florida or Puerto Rico? Yeah, we do. You know, it takes a little longer. So the mail system can be depended on, but we do have to receive it by Wednesday after that Friday of the October 9th deadline. So it's postmarked timely, but if it doesn't get to us by that's 6 days, 5 days, within 5 days, then it won't be timely.
There's a lot of uncertainty right now around the Postal Service. At least a lot of students are talking about that. They're concerned about sending in an absentee ballot. So do you recommend that we send it in as early as possible?
Yes, even before we started to talk about the Postal Service and their speed and credibility, I would always say the earlier you can get it processed and the earlier you can get it off of your kitchen table and to us, the better. We don't, again, like Norm has mentioned, we don't see an issue here as far as the Postal Service. We still see it as a very viable partner in the election process, and we feel it'll do its part to make sure that all the ballots get where they need to be. But with that said, like Norm has mentioned, there's a couple of things that when you get down near the deadline, we can't kind of bypass, which is if you're going to wait till the very last day and mail it, we still only have 7 days. And again, they are very efficient, but 7 days is 7 days. It comes to us on the 8th. All the energy you put into voting would go for naught because, you know, you're just a day late. And again, not that it happens regularly and not that we have an issue, but I wouldn't put anybody in that position if I could give them advice.
In Chautauqua County, anybody that's applied for a ballot up to this point in time will be having their ballots mailed out this Friday. Then after that point in time, the same day that we receive an application, either by phone or by mail or whatever carrier pigeon, actually carrier pigeon's not allowed, but we will process that the same day we get it. The staff is well aware. Some of them are happy about it. They're going to stay late until everything's been processed that's been received that day. And I say they're happy about it because they're on overtime, getting paid time and a half, and Christmas time is coming. So people, Christmas time or gift-giving time is coming. And so people, you know, in our office are happy to be making overtime, and so they're happy to stay. And our promise to the voters is the day we get an absentee ballot application is the day we'll process it.
So no Pony Express or the carrier pigeon. Okay, will you get a notification that when you have registered to vote, will the Board of Elections send a notification to that person where to vote and you know, that they are indeed registered?
Yes.
Okay.
Every registered voter would get a card explaining their choices and giving back the information that you provided us, and it would tell you where your poll site is and the address to it. We also have votechautauqua.com, which you can go look yourself up for any registration information to give yourself a visual that way as far as knowing, you know, a map, if you will. If you're not familiar with the area, where your poll site is, it will take you from your location to the poll site. There's some interaction that you have and an option to kind of give yourself a little more education, not only on physically getting to the poll site or where early voting and the early voting hours are, but what the ballot looks like, because there's samples available that matches the ballot you'll be seeing on election day. So you can really do a little preemptive educational piece by going to votechautauqua.com, putting in your own information and kind of looking at what's going to be beneficial for you to kind of educate yourself.
And our portal is unique in New York State. There's
good.
Nobody, well, we got a brand new portal. A person in our office, Chris Burt, developed this portal that'll actually tell you that we've received your absentee ballot. Well, we've received your application, it'll tell you that. It'll tell us if the ballot has come back, and it'll tell us if there's any issues with the ballot. So there's an election law change this year, and the election law says we have to notify you if you've made any errors prior to the election, so that you'll then have, I believe it's 5 days, Brian?
I believe it's 7 prior to the election, 5 days post-election.
You'll have at least 5 days to correct any error you might have made. And those errors that we see sometimes are, hey, I didn't seal the envelope, which we don't count ballots if the envelope's not sealed. possibly, and we see a lot of, hey, the husband signed the wife's envelope and the wife signed the husband's envelope, and then those are invalid. But now we're going to tell you that that we have these issues. We've brought 4 full-time staff in, which we didn't have before, which is expensive, but that's that's the job that we have to do, and we're going to notify people that in real time that they need to come in and fix their ballot or get a new ballot.
As a college student, am I considered a member of this community, like technically from the voting standpoint?
Of course. I mean, so everybody, we talk about this all the time, and the fact that everybody has two residences, in our opinion, in our world, and they have a residence where they live, and that may be back in Lockport, it may be in Syracuse, it may be in New York City, and then you have a voting residence, and the voting residence could be at Fredonia State. But we absolutely, I mean, Fredonia is a vital part of our voting community, and we do a lot to prepare for the college voters, we hope that the college students feel that way.
If a person is on parole from prison for a felony conviction, can they vote? And another question tied in, if a person is in jail awaiting grand jury action, can they still vote? Would the person have to vote absentee?
I'm going to. Well, certainly the person that's in jail that has not been convicted is absolutely permitted to vote, and there's only one way. The sheriff's not going to bring them over to the poll site.
That will be absentee.
So that will be
no-brainer,
an absentee ballot. It's pretty fluid as far as what goes on as far as a felon goes. There are some states that do not, even to this day, are not allowing people that have completed their time, have completed their probation to vote. Not true in New York. In New York, for the longest time, if you got out of jail, you completed your probation, you're allowed to vote. Now we even have gone another step further. So you got out of jail and you're on probation. Used to be you couldn't vote yet. But the governor is sending out lists and clemency for voting lists, and he's letting us know that yes, this person got out of jail, yeah, they're on probation, but we consider them to be people that should have their voting rights restored, and so we're quite progressive in New York State when it comes to people. Just because you made a mistake, that doesn't mean that you're going to lose your voting rights.
As a college student, why would I want to register to vote in this county?
Well, because you spend a significant amount of time and energy and money, and you have a stake in the claim of the people who make those decisions. If Fredonia is sort of your home away from home, there's a lot of things that are happening in Fredonia that affect you personally every day while you're here. So you just have to balance it off for your own decision, but in a general sense, as a college student, you come in August and you leave in May. It's a significant part of the year you are tied to our community. So if you want to weigh in on the leaders or the decisions or anything to do in this county, because you are spending a significant amount of time here, that's your choice. It's your personal choice, but as far as why would you want to, I think because you're committed to our area, and you have shown by being here for, you said you were a senior, 4 years, you've put a significant amount of time and energy into this area, and if you wanted to be part of it, we would more than say, please go ahead and come and vote here.
And I would have to live here for 30 days before I could register here?
That's what you would say on your registration form, that I have been a resident up to 30 days, yes.
Okay, and then can I also change my address, because my address would change every year? How would I go about doing that?
If you're saying your address changes, as in you're coming back and all of a sudden you're off campus and you, That's a simple process. You can call us on the phone and say, hey, I now live here. I used to live there. We would quiz you real quick about what's your date of birth, identify it's really you, and then we'll make the changes. But a registration form could do the same thing. But we do have 77,000 people, and they do move a lot. So moving people is not really something that's unique to us. We move people every day based on college kids or just other people who, you know, go from different locations within this county all the time. So yeah, that's not a problem.
Could the person send in what they've sent to the post office and saying, this is my change of address? Could they send that to you instead of re-registering?
We normally will get a DMV information that'll be shared with us. DMV, if you go you go to the local DMV and say I've moved from this point to that point, that information is shared with the Board of Elections, so we keep track of where you are. We'll then send you information saying, hey, we got this document saying that you've moved. You know, obviously verify that this is correct, and we will then update your records.
Well, under what other conditions would you re-register? Like a name change? I, you know, got married and my last name's different.
It's not necessary to re-register. It's helpful. That can be handled at the poll site on election day. Just because you changed your name, just because you have a new last name, you're still eligible to go vote. But when you get to the poll site, you should identify yourself as saying, hey, you know, I was Mary Green, but now I'm Mary Smith. And we'll take down that information and update your record very quickly. It's really not a very complicated process at all.
Okay.
To all the college students out there, what do you have to say to them to ensure that they register to vote? Do you have any words for them?
They got a big stake in this claim. And myself and Norm go to high schools, and we advocate with the LOG and with the League of Women Voters for the youth to get involved. And they don't to the level they need to. So my message to college students is this. Look it. You're part of this system. You're part of our country. You're part of everything. Don't take these years off and just allow other people to make the decision for you. And that's a problem, because when they don't participate, they don't get as much of what they deserve or would like to make their lives better. And if you pump the brakes and don't show up for 4 to 6 to 8 years because you're in that different time frame of your life, you know, 18 to 24, 18 to 25 years old, you're giving away a lot of things that probably you won't get back. So my thought to college students is this: regardless, get out there and educate yourself, get registered and vote, because you have a stake in this like everybody else. Just to let it go is not the way to, you know, make your own personal life better.
Thank you.
I want to ask about some questions about disabilities, people with disabilities and voting. Could you briefly tell us what is a ballot marking device for people with disabilities?
Sure. At every one of our poll sites, on most of our voting machines, equipped right on the voting machine is what's called a ballot marking device. And a ballot marking device would help a voter to vote independently for all sorts of disabilities. And the disability may be, you know, gee, I need the ballot spoken to me in Spanish. You know, and I realize that's not really a disability, but that's part of what happens on the ballot on the back end of the machine. Or I have Parkinson's disease, which is pretty common in Chautauqua County, and I can't fill in those ovals. But I can go to the back end of the machine, to the ballot marking device, and the ballot marking device will allow me to have a nice oval fill in, even though my hands are shaky. And then we even go to the level of a what I always call a multi-paraplegic, and you could sip and puff your way through the ballot, and it will mark the ballot for you. So you can come in and you know, normally they'll come in with people who are in this position will have their own straws, and the straw will get hooked up to the machine, and then it will allow you to sip and puff your way through the ballot and mark the ballot, thus ballot marking device.
There's always wheelchair access for polling places?
Yes, all 49 of our locations have been evaluated to the Department of Justice levels to make sure that we have parking that matches the needs of anybody who has any sort of ADA compliance issues. We have ramps, we have doorknobs, we have access ways, we have voting booths that are all geared towards people who have some type of special needs. So yeah, the experience for anybody who wants to come out and vote, we will definitely accommodate them based on from the minute they park in the driveway to the minute they get to the machine. Everything will be taken care of to allow them to participate in this process. And that's, you know, when I first came on board, the machines came on board, which was 2009, like Norm was describing the back end, you know, for somebody who's blind or whatever the situation is. We have made strides here in New York State to make sure that every one of those people who would love to participate can have the opportunity to do so.
What if you need help with voting? What happens then? What kind of assistance can you get?
Well, the rule is that you can have anyone help you that you desire, except for your union rep is not allowed to assist you, and your employer is not allowed to assist you. But otherwise, you can choose anyone that you want, and we will record that information to let us know that somebody came in to help you to vote. The reason why we record this, we were asked this recently, is if we see that there's somebody that's bringing people, person after person after person in to help them to vote, we're going to say, hey, is there something that's untoward that might be happening? So you can have anybody you want. You can choose an election inspector. Usually it'll always be the person that you want, or members of both parties will come back and give you assistance in voting if that's what you want. But you're welcome to bring your mother, your daughter, you know, your father to help you to vote. Anybody that you want, a neighbor. We have no problem with someone helping you at the poll site as long as they're not your boss or your union rep.
If someone comes down with COVID-19, because I feel like this is a relevant issue right now, and it's a little bit late in trying to get an absentee ballot, what do you think they should do?
Ooh, they came down with COVID-19 and it's too late to get an absentee ballot. They should send an agent to the Board of Elections stating such on a form, stating Ariel Davis gave Brian Abram permission to grab her ballot. I would then bring it back to you, and then you would vote it, and then I would make sure it gets processed. So as an agent, I can make sure that regardless of what your situation is, health-wise, COVID-19, anything to do with what we have currently, you can ask me to provide the ballot to you and make the process work for you.
And we see the same thing for somebody being hospitalized. I mean, somebody has a heart attack the night before the election, and thanks goodness for science today, for medicine today, you know, they're back at it the next day, and they want to vote, and they just have to have an agent that carries the application back and forth, and the ballot back and forth, and so it's really you know, not a problem, and there's no issue that the Board of Elections is unwilling to take on to assist a voter in exercising their rights.
We now have early voting, something the League of Women Voters lobbied for in Albany for quite a while. Could you tell us when early voting starts and a little bit about, you know, what early voting will entail?
Well, early voting starts October 24th, which is a Saturday. It will go for 9 continuous days. We have 3 locations. We have the fairgrounds in Dunkirk. We have the Chautauqua Mall, and we have the Board of Elections facility in Mayville. The times will be listed on our website, but definitely Saturday, Sunday. We'll go through the following weekdays, and then we'll do Saturday, Sunday again for the 9 continuous days. Early voting is our first year last year was successful. I believe we were like one of the highest percentage of counties in New York State to have people participate. People seem to like it. It was a wider opportunity for people not to all be pushed together on one day, Election Day, which will be beneficial this year for obviously for spacing and for anything to do with COVID-19. we will accommodate those voters and do whatever we can, obviously, to make sure that if that's the option you want, it will be available and it will be a good experience.
Will these early votes be tabulated and reported to the public before Election Day?
No, the earliest that we can tabulate the early voting results by New York State law is 8 o'clock on Election Day, and we're not allowed to tell anybody until 9 o'clock. Well, in Chautauqua County, if you know Chautauqua County at all, the Chautauqua County Board of Elections, we're going to report it at 9 o'clock. And, you know, so that's the first result that you're going to see that's going to be at votechautauqua.com, where you follow the results. The TV stations in Buffalo depend on Chautauqua County and the early results because we're always the first in the state. We pride ourselves on this and getting our results up. Knock on wood that we don't have any technical problems, but they depend on us, and voters will be getting those results immediately.
Good.
Is early voting available statewide, or is it just in Chautauqua County?
Oh, no, it's statewide. That was League of Women Voters driven legislation where it got implemented last year. So for the very first year, every county has to open up a minimum of at least one early voting site, and it's based on your registration. So every 50,000 you have to have one open, and so yes, any county that you go to in New York State will be providing services.
I will mention at this time, Chautauqua County was required to have one early voting site, is required to have one early voting site, but we have three. We made sure that we had a North County one, a South County one, and of course in Mayville. And I might mention to the college students that might be listening, the fairgrounds is visible from all parts of the campus. You know, it's just past the baseball stadium, the track, the soccer stadium, past the heating plant.
Short walk.
It's a very short walk. If you're registered to vote anywhere in the state of New York, you're welcome, and you hadn't voted yet, you're welcome to go over and vote early at the fairgrounds.
Awesome, thank you.
Did you have any other questions?
I don't have any more questions.
Okay, good. We'll wrap this up. Was there something that we didn't cover that you think would be important for our voting process?
I think you've been very thorough. I mean, the one thing that we always like to talk about is votechautauqua.com. Votechautauqua.com is your source for anything that you're interested in about voting in Chautauqua County. Whether it be the portal to determine, hey, am I registered to vote? You can go in and look right now, am I registered to vote? Has my absentee ballot application been received? You can go in and look right now to see if your absentee ballot application's been received. You can go in and you'll be able to go in and see that it's been mailed to you, that it's on the way back. You'll be able to go and see a lot of people, you think, why are they nervous about going to vote? Well, people want information, so the ballots are there so that the voter can see, gee, who am I voting on? If you're in Fredonia, you have a special vacancy election for village trustee. If you're in Dunkirk, you've got a vacancy election for county legislature. So you may not have heard about these. Everybody's heard about the President of the United States, but there's some local issues. Got a hot district attorney's race, got a hot race for county executive. Our state senate is up. Our state assembly is up. I missed a candidate
Congress.
Here?
We have the Congress.
Oh, Congress, of course. And so,
that's a big one.
Yeah, that's a big one. Which is another one. I mean, some voter called up the other day and they were talking about the President of the United States, and I said, well, are you going to vote for Congress? And they said, well, who's running? I said, well, that's scary that you're asking me that question. And so people need to get educated. The easiest way to get educated about who's on the ballot is to go to votechautauqua.com and look at the ballot.
I am also going to put in a plug for Vote 411, which is a league-driven information about the candidates. Questions are posed to the candidates, and they answer them. So you can get an idea of what positions your candidates have on certain issues. I want to thank everybody here, the Board of Elections and Ariel from the college for doing this, and get out and vote. It counts.
Please do.
Yep, thank you.